All right, so if you're here, odds are that you're trying to figure out how to actually use this program. By that program, I mean SolidWorks. It is one of the most capable CAD softwares in existence, but it can also be one of the most frustrating CAD softwares. So, in this kind of tutorial setup, I'm going to show you basically how to actually start, how to navigate it, and then eventually how to make your first parts. And if you stick through and follow the tutorial, I guarantee you'll learn something useful. But before we waste any more time, let's get to it. So, when you first open the software, you might have a splash screen in the middle, but in the off chance that you actually click off of it, say you click to the sides and all of a sudden that splash screen goes away, you'll be seeing this. This is what everyone sees when it launches. The splash screen can be there, you can tell it to not be there. So how do you actually make a part? Well, if you go up to your toolbar up here, this is just a new. When you click that, it gives you the options to say, do you want to make a part? Do you want to make an assembly from said parts? Or do you want to make a drawing? Now, typically, if you're just starting, you'll start with a part because that's the first thing you have to make. From there, you can make an assembly, or from a part, you can make a drawing, but you can't make a drawing or an assembly without having part files. So let's make a part. So this is your window. Let's see if we can show some things. I'm just going to turn planes on. That way you can see that this is your 3D space. You have your front plane, your top plane, your right plane. These are always going to be here. These are your first building blocks to start from. This is your feature tree. Basically, as we build out a part, things will start to progress down this left side as we add things like sketches and features to actually build out the part. Now, something important to remember with SolidWorks is it's a parametric CAD software, so that means everything that it does has to be backed by math, otherwise it won't work. It'll simply break itself, it'll give you a bunch of errors, or it'll rebuild indefinitely, and if that's the case, then yeah, it's just not a good thing. So, we're here. How do we actually make something from this? Well, up here you have all of these different tabs. These all correlate to different things, but typically you can't create a feature without a sketch. You can create surfaces, but surfaces are very, very complicated and SolidWorks doesn't like them. And sheet metal and a whole bunch of other things, depending on what sort of software you have or your needs, you can modify these tabs to basically only have what you need. It can kind of clean it up a little bit, but let's actually make something because then we can look into more tools and see what we're going with. So to make something, you have to create a sketch, and it says select a plane to make said sketch. So we have 3 planes already. You can add more planes later on, but you have to start with one of these because there's nothing here. We have to start with something. So let's go on the front plane, and we're just going to draw a circle. Actually, before we do that, let's look at everything that's up here. So basically right now we are in the sketch mode of the software. So you can see we have exit sketch. If we exit out of the sketch, then we're back into the just kind of the base function that it all looks like. So we can hop back into the sketch, and then we have lines, circles, splines, rectangles, arcs, ellipses, slots, and polygons. You can also add individual points that you can dimension and define. You can add text, which you can actually interact with, change size, cut with text, and things like that. So the easiest thing that we can do is we'll just make a box, and then we'll go from there. So something that you can do is if you middle mouse click, it will actually rotate your model about the center point or the origin point, which is this little red arrow system. So that's your base XY plane. But if you change it, Z is actually this way. So let's add a rectangle, we'll make a little box. So I selected the center rectangle, and if you look, there's 1s and 2s in these. Those denote how many clicks is required to make the shape. So I did the center because I want the center of the rectangle to be the center of the origin. and let's add some dimensions to this, because right now it doesn't have any dimensions. You can go up into here in Smart Dimension and click on a side, and then they have this little pop-up. So we'll say this is 2 inches, and let's make a 2 by 2 by 2 cube. So we've defined that these two lines are 2 inches apart, which also defines this. But now we need to define how far away they are. So we'll make this 2 inches. So given that this is constrained by the point in the center, it doesn't have a third dimension, which would be where is this square in relation to the front plane, and you'd only be able to dimension it off of the origin point. So now that we have that, we need to make this sketch into a solid. So that means we need to give it some depth or some actual solid material. And once we have our sketch in place, then we need to go into the feature set. This is where you take sketches or points or lines or any of the other things and create a solid part from that. So the simplest one is an extruded boss base that basically just says, let's take the sketch and we'll pull it towards us or push it away from us, and the volume that it creates as it's going forward and backward, that will be our solid part. So since I want this to have the exact center at the point of the origin, we can make it go both directions, and these are your different options in the boss extrude menu. So basically you can tell from where to start. So typically sketch plane is the easiest because that's where you put the sketch initially. So then it's just saying, okay, we're going to start right there, and we're going to go set dimensions or various different other parameters away from that plane. You can tell it to start on a different surface facer plane, which would have to be a parallel plane to the plane that you sketched in. A vertex would just be a point, and a straight offset means that you can just scale it forwards and backwards. So if we tell it to be an inch away forwards, it'll go that way. And you can click this little toggle, and it will change the direction of which it's offsetting. But we're going to put it back to sketch plane. So blind basically means that just from where it is, it goes that far. It's a lot simpler than the other ones, which basically are dependent on there being other stuff. But since this is the very first thing, we can't tell it to interact with another part of what we're drawing. So we're going to make this 1 inch. And usually things will dynamically update as long as it's not overly complicated. We'll change this to 1 inch, and there we go. Everything looks good. We click this OK green check mark, and now we have a cube. And I'll go through and turn these and hide them. That doesn't mean they are gone. It just means that they are hidden so we can look at the part that we're working on in better detail. So that's just kind of the basis on how you actually get something in existence in SolidWorks. So hopefully you learned something along the way, and if you want, I'm going to do a whole series, and I think the part that we're going to make is ending up going to be a covered wagon, because of all the things that I can think about, that has the most detail that we can use to create things. So hopefully you found this informational on making your very first parts in SolidWorks, and if so, stick around, there'll be more.